Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb.
Hey Mickey, what game are we playing today?
Have you gone mad, Jeb?
No, I feel this spiritual ghost presence. There's like something here, but I can't see it.
Okay, no surprises here. The box is setting up, and evidently Jeb can't read. So what we're doing today is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition by Fantasy Flight Game. This is a Arkham slash Lovecraft slash whatever game, which Fantasy Flight does a lot of. This one is 1 to 5 players, and it's fully co-op.
Did you say it was the 2nd edition?
I did.
Alright, that's the key part, because it's not the 1st edition.
Did you just totally block out everything I just said? Okay.
I heard Mansions of Madness
gosh.
and then nothing after that.
I don't even know why I do this to myself. Does anybody else want to play games? Gary, are you there? Anyone? Somebody. Okay. So anyways, what?
It's a game of exploration, mystery,
I
and
was
horror.
trying to see if there was game design by Nikki Valens and
based on design by
and
Corey.
based on the design by Corey somebody, which there you go.
Koneska.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
So real quick, basically, so with 2nd edition, here's the big difference. This has an app. Okay. So we never did 1st edition. It's actually I think it was actually on our list before this came out. I took the plunge and bought 2nd edition after listening to some of the things about it, because as spectacular as 1st edition is or was, the app, and if you're a I don't use apps type of person, this is the game that you want to use an app.
Yeah.
It makes it so good. So real quick, basically, the setup for the 1st edition was absolutely kind of like a nightmare, because you had to set up each individual room. You had to look in the book. You had to pick scenario. You had to be very, 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 very careful with the way you set up cards.
Mm-hmm.
One mistake could blow the whole scenario.
Speaking from experience.
Speaking from experience, I actually did that in one of the games, and it really did blow the whole scenario. I mean, we were halfway through the game when I realized that I had done something totally wrong, and I was like, well, that just, might as well just pick it up. I mean,
and we did.
We did. So I can't stress enough how this thing, having the app run the mansion for you is. Otherwise, you had to have a person taking control of the mansion. That was their job, and to keep the story going and stuff like that. Now the app does it. It does all the randomizations and things like that. And the bonus to the app is that it can make some of the ones that you would set up almost exactly the same. It can switch it enough to make it a little bit different.
Right.
It doesn't have to keep things exactly the same, although for the most part it is going to be the same when you select a scenario. It's just it can, if it wants to, tweak a little bit. And it also helps with like the monsters and things like that. So that's the big difference between it, is that app controls the mansion
Right.
in 2nd edition. You used to control the mansion in the other one. So that also brings in a problem for a lot of the game, or no, one of Jeb and I's other favorite games that we haven't played in years now, which is Descent, because you have to have a DM, and I understand that now they've added an app and they've done it for that one too. But back in the day, you had to have the DM.
That was one of our biggest beefs, at least one of mine when I first started gaming.
And then what happens if you're the DM is a lot of times it's easier to teach a character than it is to teach the DM, so you get stuck being the DM all the time unless you're lucky enough to have somebody that's so into the game that they're used to doing it too.
Yeah.
So then you're the one that's always stuck. It's not stuck, it's fun being the bad guy too, but sometimes it's like, well, I'd like to play a character and see what I could do. And you don't get to do that because otherwise you're never going to get the game to the table.
I think I taught Descent to 4 different groups, and I was the DM each time, and I was like, this is getting kind of stale. So.
Yep. And that's kind of, that's one of the reasons why most of the time both of us stray away. As soon as we see you have to have a dungeon master, it's like 9 out of 10 times, it's a no for us. The game has to sound so exceptional for us to break that rule that, I mean, we just don't do it a lot. Because unfortunately, we don't always have, you know, it's hard to find extra people. Recently, we've had some games where Gary is, like, way more steady now, which is awesome. We're actually, like, we really love the fact that we get to play with 3 people now so much more. Because he either really likes games and doesn't like us, or he actually likes playing games with us too. So I don't know. So, anyways, like Jeb said, it's an exploration thing in terms of here's a scenario, you get a little background story, which is really nice.
I think it's usually it's always you start going into the mansion for some reason.
Right.
I think the different scenarios have different reasons why.
Yep.
But you start going into the mansion, you walk around exploring rooms, and you're trying to get to the end goal and solve a mystery or whatever.
Each of you is some different type of investigator. You have a different type of background. You have a different type of feel to what your character does. So they did really well with that. You have all kinds of, and like Jeb said, with the exploration, even if you play the same scenario, you could end up getting a monster at a different time or finding a different weapon or something like that. I will say, I think the replayability does come down to their ability to add new things, because you really wouldn't want to play the same scenario over and over and over again, even though I think him and I have played the first one 3-4 times.
The caveat being, it's been how much time in between each of those plays?
I think for a little bit there we played like 2 or 3 within a year and a half, which I know that might sound like a long time, but it's really not for a game of this size. If you play all the different games that we do, something hitting the table that often that's kind of a big game is actually pretty good for us, because the bigger games are harder to get people to commit to at least a few hours of sitting at the table. I think this one does a great job of keeping your attention, though. Even when it's not your turn. Even when Jeb's not listening to me right now, he'd be listening to the game.
No, in my head I'm like, we might be going close to review territory, so maybe we should hold off.
Oh, well, you can take out anything you want from what I just said, and I'll re-say
No, I'll leave it all. I'm just saying, we should probably let the people know that we're going over components, gameplay. We're going to actually play the whole thing.
Yep.
Or not the whole thing, just the scenario. And we've got Haley.
We're going to play a whole game.
Yeah. We got Haley joining us, and then we'll do the review, which we'll talk about our thoughts on the game.
Yep.
So. All right, so we're back with the components of Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. So we've got pretty much most of it laid out in front of you. The one thing we don't have in front of us is a computer or tablet to run the game app. So you will need one of those, and that's not included in the box.
But you can see what the screen looks like if you watch a little bit of the gameplay.
Yes. Alright, so let's go over the actual components that come in the box. So the first thing are the map tiles.
We have 2 sizes of maps. You have these squares, and you have the rectangles. Real quick, maps are the map pieces are divided into rooms and or sections of rooms, little lines here, things like that. Each tile also has a name so that you can identify what room you're looking for, and on top of that they have a little symbol to tell you what set it goes with.
They're double-sided, right?
They are double-sided. So there's a different name over here. Looks totally different.
Gotcha.
Blah, blah, blah. The app will tell you what room to get.
Alright, next up are the investigator cards and the miniatures that go with them.
Alright, so here are all your investigators that come in the base game. I don't know why my cards got a little warped here, because they're actually probably just the way they were sitting in the box. But they should readjust real easily, because they are linen base cards. They're very sturdy. They're very nice. What do we got? 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 different investigators that you can choose from. The beginning has all their stats on it. On the back it has a little bit of flavor text. Also tells you what they start with.
Right. Then there are the dice that you'll use in the game.
Right. So your dice are 8-siders for the game. There are you either get a blank, the I don't know what they call it in this thing, but the star. Most of these things call it an elder sign, but I don't know if it's called an elder sign in this. And then you have a clue symbol. That's it for the dice. And so those blank, magnifying glass, or the I don't know if it's called an elder sign or not in this game, but that's what it looks like.
Then there are the monster tokens and miniatures.
Okay, so your monsters are here. You get basically 3 different sizes. These guys on the smaller bases, a medium-sized base, and then gigantic. Your monster stats are in 2 places. Here in the front, and then a bit on the back too. Has some information. Jeb probably has in the notes. I always confuse which number is which when they start talking about it in the rules, but it's very easy to glance at the rule book and be like, okay, this is its, one of them is called terror, and then some of it's its strength, and etc., etc. You get the idea.
And the app keeps
the app keeps track of some of it, but some of it you need to, there's certain things that affect, and one of the bigger issues that you will run into is basically the initiative for the monsters, and that is based on one of the numbers on there. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is right now. Sorry, that's very awful for a review person to be trying to tell you how to play the game and then not that. But it's not gameplay, it's just components right now.
Yeah. Alright, so next we'll talk about the different kind of cards there are. So there are common cards.
That is the cards in. So basically the common cards are in with all these items and stuff like that. I think I have some of the advanced stuff in here because the common cards have the backpack type of thing with the items and stuff.
And then there are unique items.
Which is the fancy one with like the lock on it. Okay.
So the next is the spell cards.
Okay, and the spell cards, they also, one of the little cards, they have the name of the spell on the top, what you do with it, and then there's a back too. Most of them will say, do this, and then flip the back, and it says something on it. And if you notice that there are a lot of the same spell on each pile, and the backs can be different on some of these cards. I can't remember if they all are different, but it's kind of one of the unique things about the game is that what happened to you one time when you're casting a spell or doing something else in the game doesn't mean it's going to be the same the next time you cast that spell or whatever, which is kind of neat. The downside is, I don't know, like, because it has writing, it's not, I don't think they did a great job as making it an identifier, like when you're flipping
Right.
through them, it's like, oh my gosh, this looks like the same color as everything else. You flip it over and it's like, word, you're not helping me out here. It's not the worst thing in the world because they all look like this and the other cards don't. It's just, it was just a little bit of a nuisance.
Then there are the condition cards.
So similar to the spells, you have a whole stack of like the same type of condition. Like, so this is all the insane stuff. This is like all the dazed, focused, which is actually a good condition. Restrained. Okay, so you get the point. There's all kinds of those, and again, there's actually different effects that can happen to you when you get one of these cards, because then again you look on the back and it has wording based on the card that you got. So it's going to be, it can be very different each time one of those pops up.
And then the last kind of cards are the damage and horror cards.
Okay, again, well, these ones are a lot easier to keep separated, as are, you know, some of these that actually have a nice back that sticks out. But this is your sanity deck. This is your wounds, and again, kind of similar to what I was just talking about with the spells and the insane. Notice they all have wording. These are all different things that can happen to you. Now, what is interesting in the game is that you can take the sanities, I think it's the sanities, or the wounds, you can take them in two states. You can take them either face down, or the game can tell you that they're face up. Inherently, they come at you face up, so you want to hope that they come face down. The rules state that you have to take these things face up unless stated otherwise, and the problem is they can get really nasty. Now there's some of them that it's just flavor and nothing really happened to you, so it's not always horrible, but as you play the game, you'll be like, oh, please come face down, please come face down. So not only that, but this is a little bit of rules. I know I'm just going over the components, but when these stack on your character, it doesn't matter how they are, face down or face up. It's just the fact that you have them no matter what. So just keep that in mind. It's an important thing to reiterate. That's why I'm saying it right now, because I'm going to say it again later.
So next up are all the different types of tokens. There's a big pile of them.
There's a big... I don't think we're going to go through every single one of these because, again, this is such a different type of component and game setup to show you guys because the app does a lot of this work. But some of the major ones, you have...
The clue
tokens are huge.
They're the green magnifying glasses.
Right.
Then there's the search and interact.
Right, which is the question mark / that. You have... For generic characters, you have some things that can roam around mansion.
Explore and Sight.
Explore and Sight, which is this one, the lantern in that. And there's some ID tokens for like when you have multiple monsters out or a baddie or something that you need to have a distinguishing factor. And yes, the app tracks all this stuff. You go, it'll tell you like put this blue one on this guy, and then you stick it in his slot, and that way you know which one it is.
Yep.
So if you'll notice, like we said in the overview of the game or the introduction to the game when we were giving you some comparisons, notice that there are no damage counters in this game anymore. So it's all gone. So that's actually really nice.
And then the last bit of tokens is in this pile down here. There's barricades, secret passages, fire, walls, doors.
Yeah,
just
basically,
a bunch of stuff that...
Basically flavor for the scenarios and / the rooms. Although the stuff that gets placed in it, a lot of it either has an effect or can be used. Mm-hmm. It's not... there's not a ton of it that's like totally fodder. You might never use it, but the option is there.
Yeah. And I think that's everything for components.
Alright, so we'll be back real quick. Again, this is probably going to be strange compared to some of our other ones.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of got to make some of the stuff up, and then it's going to be dive into actions that you can take, because again, with the app guiding some of this stuff, it needs to tell you what to do. So inherently, we're not going to be able to be like, okay, first scenario, I take this and this and this and this. You got to wait until it tells you to take this tile and etc., etc. But we'll get into that in just a minute.
Alright, so we're going to go through setup, and like Mickey said earlier, this is going to be kind of a little bit different since it relies on an app. So we're going to go through what you would normally do, and where the app is involved will tell you and kind of describe what it would look like, I guess.
Right, and then if whatever we say really doesn't make that much sense, watch 10 minutes probably of the next section where we go over gameplay, and you'll get to see that in action too. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit weirder. So you're going to see like your character setup and where cards go and stuff like that. But you're going to miss a little bit of it, and so the part that you miss, you kind of have to watch, and then we will at least get the mechanics down for you, and at least tell you a little bit about what is happening on the screen when you're doing these things.
Right. Alright, so we'll go over the setup now. The first thing you want to do is separate all the cards into decks by type. I was going to say start with the damage and horror decks, since they're kind of easy.
Yep.
They're the blue and the red. What you're going to do is just shuffle these face down, and then leave them in a deck, and then put them off to the side. After that, there is the items.
So most of the items have a backpack looking back to them. As you can see, some of the items, very few, have some kind of directions on the back because they do something a little bit more or have an effect. But for the most part, they look like this, and they have like a brown border, and they usually tell you what kind of like this is a ranged weapon, it's a gun, that type of thing. So there's a couple key factors, and like I said, most of them except for a couple all have that back. And these
the book says to put them in alphabetical order, but if you listen to our advice, just organize them alphabetically when you finish playing the game every time, and that just makes it easier for the next time you play.
Yeah, you really, let's do that.
Yeah. Alright, then there's the unique items and the spells and the conditions, which all of these are just going to be decks that are placed face up.
Because you're going to have to look for certain things. That's the unique items with the little keyhole thing on the back. The conditions, again, those are going to be, keep those in order. Not quite as important for alphabetical with these, but
just
it's
keep the
kind of
same
nice.
ones together.
Yeah, exactly. You do not want to do what I just did.
And mix them up.
Yeah. Actually, I saved myself. But anyhow, don't mix them up. It's actually really important that they stay together, too, because, like I was describing earlier, since they have different effects on the back, if you don't have them all together, you're missing one with the potential to do something different in the game.
And then I think those are the spells, which keep the same spells together.
Yep, and again, same situation that I was just described.
Yep.
Definitely try to keep them together, because if you have one in somewhere else and you just didn't realize it, it doesn't mess up the game, but you're missing the odds of something unique happening to you.
Alright, so the next thing is to gather the map tiles and organize them by size.
Yep.
And that's really easy. There's the long ones and the square ones.
Right.
And the square ones are over here, but I won't move them.
Yep, and you'll have to thumb through those front and back sometimes to find the room.
Yep. Next is to make sure the monster figures have a token in their base.
All they're talking about is this here. Let's see if I can show you. This actually, where is the thing for it? There, it's off the side. I don't know if I can get it to do it. These actually slide when you get the game. You have to put them in. See, so they used to be a lot different, and the piece didn't wasn't a lot different. But this used to be a big randomizer in the
In
first edition, yes. And now the app keeps it together. But these still do have a lot of important information that you probably will have to refer to from time to time. And it has some, like this guy's flying, so it reminds you what flying means in terms of the rules.
Yep, so you'll do that with all the monster figures. Next up is to make a token pool, and it depends on how you want to do this. I think the last time we played, we just kind of had them all, and I pulled stuff when needed. You can separate them if that's easier for you. It's probably the smartest way to do it,
yeah.
But I was doing it the lazy way. So.
Actually, I think it was one of those things where he was kind of separating as we went along.
Yeah.
You know, and then once you've got a little pile of each, you can kind of just go with that until you need something unique.
After that, you are going to choose a scenario in the app, and it says click new game is what I have on the notes.
Right. So, and the reason for that is because you want to start a new game. It can, however, save your progress if you need to get up and leave. Boy, I don't know that I could ever find myself doing that unless it was literally, I'm going to go eat now and then I'm going to come back and play. But the option is there. So again, here's one of the parts where we can't show you, but you're going to tell the game which stuff you have, and then it's going to let you pick a scenario. And then like,
I believe at the bottom of the scenarios it has like a difficulty, like in stars or...
Yeah, each scenario has its own difficulty, and so you can pick. It also tells you the approximate play time, how hard and about how long it's going to take you to play through it, which is pretty nice, actually.
Yeah. And then after you choose a scenario, you're going to choose investigators. So each player will just... You can randomize it, you can pick who you like, however you want to do it.
I don't know if Jeb's going to say this, but once you pick the characters, this is going to be also a screen on the app, and you're going to tell it which characters you are playing with.
You got to input all the characters.
Yeah, you got to input the characters so it knows who you're playing with. But these are your characters. They have matching figures to go with them, and like I said earlier, your stats. Your skill stats, your health and sanity stats, your flavor text, and I guess this game doesn't have the starting items because the app does that for you too.
And that's the next step. Once you input all your characters and hit the next button or whatever, the app is going to list all the starting possessions. So what you'll do is search through the item deck, and maybe spell deck if somebody starts with a spell, but you find the cards for each of those, and then you distribute them among the players. And when you distribute it, that's completely up to the players how they want to.
Yeah, you could literally give one person all of it if you wanted. I highly discourage that because that would be not the brightest move. But you literally get to decide, and somebody most of the time is going to end up with two things or whatever because of the way that I don't know why, but it's an interesting way to do it, but it does let you be like, hey Jeb, you're really good at this, you should take this item, or vice versa, Jeb, you're really weak in this and I'm okay in it, so you take this thing that helps you with that a little bit.
And then after you distribute the items, you're going to read the prologue in the app, but I think the app actually reads it itself.
I think the prologue, it was kind of exciting the first time we fired it up because I thought it was going to read like everything to us.
Yeah.
After playing it, I don't think you really would want it to read everything, but I do kind of wish there was a little bit more reading to you than it actually provided. Basically, the main parts, and when you went into someplace new, because they did it kind of like in a spooky type of thing, so you get kind of excited when you hear it at first. It was pretty neat.
Okay, after the prologue is read, you are going to place the starting map and the investigators, and that's pretty much following what the app tells you. It'll tell you which tile to grab. Usually, I think, what is it, the starting hall is one that I've seen a lot.
Yeah, because we've played the intro so much, this is a lobby.
Yeah.
And we've seen this plenty of times. So this is going to be our make pretend board that we're going to show you some other stuff on. But we're going to pretend, hey, the app said put this board out.
Yep. And then you would place the investigators where the app tells you. And in the lobby, it's usually at the front door.
So we put a couple people here for you. Yeah.
And then the app is going to tell you where to place tokens and any other steps that it tells you to do you would follow. So it's actually super easy because it'll go one by one for the different tokens and it'll be like, place this here. And what is it, like the...
Okay, so these question marks would be like, oh, hey, there's a picture on the wall right here.
So it would be like, put that token right there.
Right. And it's like, oh, that's something I can go look at. And then, like Jeb said, oh, here's a closed door. That's something I can also interact with. Or put the such and such Mrs. Green in the foyer with the knife in this room, and you would put the token, and they actually, they're hard to see, but you actually can find the exact picture that comes up on the app. They're all in here. And then, see, so this is like a generic one, but there's actually ones for specific people in different scenarios, which is interesting too. It helps a little bit in terms of, hey, this one's more important than that one.
And then there's also things that are like, place this, or I guess turn it around. What is it? A picture, right? So you take the picture token and you put it on top of a door.
Right.
And that just means that that door is not available.
Right. That's not a door in this scenario, because any of the doors that you have access to are going to have one of the lanterns on.
Yeah, so like when you start, this room would have probably this, right?
That's something like
something
that.
Like
Maybe
that.
There might have been another picture over there, or so something. I don't remember which. It doesn't really matter because, like I said, this is one of the things. We're just making this up. The app, like Jeb said, is going to literally tell you exactly what to do. It's kind of, one of the bad things is it's kind of easy to click through it, and there has pop-up. This isn't going to make sense until you see it. But pop-up stuff comes up to tell you, like, hey, do this now. And sometimes it covers what it's talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Just know that you can drag the entire map around to see where things are. And if you miss something little like this, which is a little bit harder to see, you just...
well, you wouldn't. It wouldn't give you the option to even try to go through
it wouldn't let you go through it anyways.
Yeah.
But if you just take a second and look closer at the map, you'll see. Oh, wait a second! I have a door there, and they have it covered up.
Yeah.
It's not a huge thing, but it has happened. Clicking through stuff.
Yep. So that's everything for setup. Once you finish doing what the app tells you, it'll be like ready to start.
Right.